Feeling so hard, summer rhythms flame, we're gonna thrive. Go, 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 oh, shout it out loud. In the summer sun, we're a summer loving crowd. Talking Brazil.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Brazil Ball.
The world be filled with love tonight. Sway to the beat, make it feel so right.
Yeah, we're back again. It's time for another episode. It's that time again, George. I'm here once more with my co-host, George. How are we doing?
Yeah, all right, James. Thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Just enjoying the theme song there.
Yeah. I think it's a catchy one again. I hope it's the third week. I think we're using it. So, yeah, let us know what you're thinking of it.
Of course, we're back, and there's been another week of no Brasileirão Serie A action, unfortunately, which obviously messes with our schedule a little bit. But we promised that we'd have a show for everybody, George, and we've got another one today. Last week we looked at the Brazilians in Europe, didn't we? What have we got lined up for the listeners today?
Yeah, but it was a good episode, wasn't it, James? I think I enjoyed looking at that. But today, with a little note, another pause in the schedule, like you said, we're looking at Brazilian sort of focus on the Brazil squad for the upcoming Copa America, James, which starts in just over 3 weeks' time in America, in the USA. And so we're going to have a look at, bit more in-depth look at the Brazilian squad, who they're playing, like I said, the squad, the manager, that sort of thing. So, you can expect that sort of thing coming up in the next sort of hour or so.
Yeah, absolutely. It's summertime over here, or getting towards, it's the end of the season for the European season. And obviously that means tournament football. So usually over here, we're all used to watching the Euros, aren't we? And that'll be no different this year. Everybody's looking forward to that. But I don't know how many European viewers really take too much in of the Copa America. But it is a really good tournament. It's obviously, as we looked at last week, there's a lot of players, not just from Brazil, but from all of South America playing in Europe. So they're all familiar names. The countries obviously are very familiar in football terms. So it's a good tournament, and one which is always hotly contested. It's very prestigious to win it. Argentina are the holders, of course, but Brazil are going to have a good go. They won it back in, I think it was 2019. I think they won it. I can't remember if they did. I think because of COVID, there was a slightly messed up schedule, but they did win it under Tite, and they're going to have another go at doing it under Dorival Jr. this time.
Yeah, absolutely, James. Like you said, I think, like we covered on the pod beforehand, I think Brazilian football and the Brazilian national team has fallen on a little bit of bad times really recently, and come second a lot to Argentina, which they won't like. So, like you said, maybe it's time that Dorival Jr. brings it home and brings them a trophy, because, yeah, they've not been at the best for a little while now, and it'll hurt them that Argentina are doing so well. Obviously, world champions, Copa American champions as well. They won it last time, so they need to back themselves up and win again, I think.
I think it was in Brazil last time that they won it, actually, even Argentina as well. Let me just check that, but I think that was correct.
Because, I haven't actually had look. 2022, did they beat Brazil in the final?
I think they did, actually, but I
seem to remember it. I think they did, yeah. I think most often than not, potentially. I think potentially, James, are more often than not the two sides going up against each other more often than not, I think.
Well, you would think so, wouldn't you? But actually, I mean, they have done it occasionally. But so the last final was Argentina beat Brazil 1-0. Prior to that, in 2019, Brazil beat Peru. Before that was Chile, Argentina, 2 in a row, and before that it was Uruguay and Paraguay. So actually, no, you're
right. Yeah.
On that. I mean, they did face each other in 2004 and 2007. in the final, which Brazil won both. So it's not like it's completely unusual, but it's not a completely regular occurrence as well. So we'll see. They are the two best countries really at the moment as well. So we'll have to wait and see how it all pans out. But in the meantime, we should just give an update on the situation going on in Serie A, in the Brasileirão, in the domestic Brazilian game, just before we get into it. So obviously the last 2 weeks we've been kind of not able to do a show. The game, the fixtures of the schedule has been postponed for the last couple of weeks. But good news is that the fixtures are scheduled for this weekend. So the games, as far as we know at the moment, are all going ahead. Grêmio's game has been moved from Porto Alegre to Curitiba. So, George, just some reaction to that. We should have a regular show back up and running for the listeners next week.
Yeah, delighted, James. You know what I mean? I think you've, pausing the season for a couple of weeks. And like I've said before, we've just started to get going with it. Match day reviews and stuff like that, getting into the makeup of the episodes, and then it suddenly stops. So yeah, excited to have it back again, and hopefully the situation in Grande do Sul is a bit more contained than it has been over the last couple of weeks, because they still continue to have issues. So as always, we're sending our best wishes over there from here. But yeah, great news that it's back again, which means things are moving slowly back towards normality potentially over there. So good. Yeah, excited to have it back.
Yeah, it's good timing in a way for us with the European season ending and no football. I mean, the tournaments are on, aren't they? But no football to focus on week to week. So it'll be nice to have that back. And like you say, hopefully things are a little better for the people over there. I know there are difficulties, and there probably will be for some time, but it'd be good for everybody over there to get some normality back into proceedings as well. So that's the situation there. So we will be back next week. So this is just a brief interlude as we planned. We planned 2 shows, and that's it. I think you were quite pessimistic, weren't you, of the chances? I don't know why. I mean, you immediately jumped to the can in it, and I really don't know why, because there was no indication that they were going to do that. It was never really in the cards, but you just seem to immediately assume that I mean, maybe that's the Leeds fan, and you just immediately assuming the worst.
Well, yeah, and with good reason, given the other day, James, as well. But yeah, probably possibly. I just thought, yeah, maybe it's going to get worse before it gets better. But it looks like they've managed to turn things around quickly. They did say the 1st of June, looking like you said, as of recording, that that these are going ahead as plans. So yeah, it's good. But I did just think, you know what, it's going to go under this. But yeah, delighted that they've managed to do it in the time frame that they did. And like you said, we planned for 2 shows, and without it, I mean, we were planning, I think, other ones, beyond this if it was need be. But yeah, great. It's what we've come on the pod to do. So it's great to do it, isn't it? Really, save these things for the sort of the out of season. When the season finishes, December time, we can do things like this, instead of in the season. So that's good.
Yeah, well, it does work anyway with the Copa America, like you say, just a couple of weeks away, and people are getting excited for it, no doubt, in Brazil. So let's get into the meat of it then. Let's have a look at the kind of the 26-man squad that Dorival Jr. has selected. So I don't know how you want to do this, George. Do you want to run through perhaps the goalkeepers, and I'll run through the defenders, and then you do the midfield, I'll do the attack, that kind of thing? That might work and add a bit of variety.
Yeah, if you like. I mean, the thing is, James, I haven't got the third. I know Edison planned to pull out of it, didn't he? But I haven't got the third goalkeeper on what I'm looking at here. So
okay, well, I'll do the goalkeepers then, and then you do the defenders, and I'll do the midfielders, etc. Yeah, how does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good to me then.
And I think we can get some nice kind of tunage going on this one as well.
Absolutely.
So we can have a little bit of
that's what they're here for, the listeners.
Yeah, I think so as well. What should we go for? Let's go for this one. Yeah, that sounds like a winner, doesn't it? So
that sounds like a good one.
Yeah, it does. So, as follows, Mr. Dorival Jr., it's his first tournament as manager, and we'll go into him a little later on. But he's gone with three keepers, as George mentioned there. Edison was initially, I don't like this music actually, I'm going to change it. I think Edison was initially in the squad, the Manchester City goalkeeper, but he did actually have to pull out through injury. So the three men are as follows: Alisson Becker of Liverpool, Bento, who's a goalkeeper we've looked on in the show in the past, of Atletico Paranense, and Rafael is the third keeper, George, the Sao Paulo veteran, uncapped, untested,
Yes.
but he is he's on the plane.
Yeah, you did say about that actually. He's on the plane to America then. Well, defenders, there's Beraldo from PSG. There's Eder Militao, who plays for Real Madrid. There's Gabriel, of course, at Arsenal. Marquinhos for PSG. Danilo for Juventus. Jan Couto of Girona. And Arana, who's a homegrown player playing for my team Garlo, and also the final defender is Wendell, who's playing for Porto in Portugal.
Yeah, good defensive options there. Definitely some experience mixed in with some slightly more untested plays at international level, but still a good group of defenders there. The midfield is a little bit shorter actually, so we've got a very, very Premier League feeling to this midfield group. So we've got Lucas Paquetá, the notorious alleged better. Bruno Guimaraes.
It's a good bet, doesn't he? He does.
Allegedly. Bruno Guimaraes of Newcastle United is in there. We've got Douglas Luiz of Aston Villa, who had a heck of a season. We've got Andreas Pereira of Fulham. So we've got West Ham, and we've got Fulham, and we've got João Gomez of Wolves in there as well. And we've also got a man who I've been writing about this week, Edison of Atalanta, who was a late call up to the squad, was included as the squad was bumped up from 23 to 26, and he has been linked with Liverpool. And he did put in an excellent performance. I don't know if you saw, George, in the Europa League final. Just this week on.
Yes, they were speaking of him, highly in the commentary as well. So looked a good player, good tidy player. So
indeed,
potentially he's on your shopping list for the summer.
He could be. His reputation is beginning to explode a little. So this summer's tournament may be a good showcase for Edison. So not too many midfield options there. A little more in attack.
It's a very Premier League heavy midfield option, that, isn't it? Really, I think, what is that? 5 of the 6 of them are playing in the Premier League, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite incredible.
And
really.
All interestingly for different teams, and all even more interestingly are teams outside of the traditional Big Six. You've got West Ham, Newcastle. You've got West Ham, Newcastle, Villa, Fulham, and Wolves. So you've got 5 different teams there, all traditionally slightly small, well, not smaller, but less successful teams. So that is an interesting thing to point out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just shows you, don't it? The Brazilian team, the Brazilians are making their way into the Premier League, in other teams that aren't of the, like you said, the traditional 6. So yeah, good to see. It can only be good for the English watchers, can't it? Get some Brazilians in there, in and around the Premier League. It makes it more exciting potentially.
It does, but enough talk of the midfield. Who has Dorival Jr. selected for the Brazilian attack, the Samba boys?
Well, James, I hope my graphic's right here, because it might not be, but I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you've got it written down. But there's Endrick, of course, the soon-to-be Real Madrid player, poster boy potentially for this tournament. He makes a cut. There's Eva Nielsen, first time call up for him, playing at Porto, again in Portugal. There's Gabriel Martinelli, I think, James, is there, of Arsenal. somehow made the cut. I don't think he's had a fabulous season, really, has he, James? But might be one of the favourites for the manager. There's my man Rafinha, of course, in the squad. There's playing for Barca. There's Rodrigo playing for Real Madrid. There's the young man Savio, who's also playing for Girona, soon to be in the Premier League with Manchester City. And heading up, the final man to name is Vinicius Junior of Real Madrid. James, that concludes a 26-man squad going to America for the Copa America.
Yeah, that's it. That's the 26.
Catchy tune as well to go with it.
Yeah,
maybe they'll blast that out on the plane on the way to America.
Maybe they will. Yeah, maybe they'll do like a little cheer as each of the names are read out there, or they'll be, they'll do like the announcement, the tannoy. So yeah, you were right. I mean, all of them there were correct. Potentially, all of them there were correct. Martinelli, as you said, yeah, a little bit of a double take because he hasn't had a great season, and it's not like he's been in the squad a huge amount as well. But as we said, new manager, new favourites. So I did actually get a couple of stats on this 26-man squad just before we pick out anything that stands out, especially. So quite interesting, really. The average age of the squad. What would you put that at, George, having listened and heard all of those?
I mean, I guess the average age, I don't know, 24?
Almost 25.
So
25.1 is about the average age. So, wow. I think the oldest player, I didn't check the oldest player, I feel like it's, the goalie, Rafael. But aside from him, he's a bit of an outlier. I think it's Marquinhos, who must be about 29, 30 by now. I think, or Wendell, I know he's 30. I think Pepe potentially could be nearing 30, but it's not an old squad. You look at the key men. We talked about the attackers a bit last week, and they're all kind of relatively young, early 20s. So it's not an old squad. 25 is no age really for an international group of players. And then I got the average caps as well, because having a look through it, it seemed like there was a lot of players who didn't have an awful lot of caps to the name. And the average caps actually is 16. So that is, again, really not a lot going into an international tournament. And when you think about that's boosted by the likes of Marquinhos, who have about 84, I think 80-odd caps. Alisson's got 60-odd. Other than those two, I mean, Vinicius is a fair amount, I think, and Rodrigo. But other than that, you're talking about a handful of caps per player, really. A Paquetá as well is another experienced player. But, the rest of them aren't particularly used to this kind of environment in a Brazil shirt. So 3 uncapped players as well. Of course, Rafael, the goalkeeper. Ederson, our man, the Atalanta midfielder. He is also uncapped. This is his first call-up. And also Evan Nielsen, who I know you're a fan of, George. That's his first. I think he might have been called up before, but he certainly hasn't played for the Brazilian Seleção. So 3 untested players, and you look at those 3 and probably suspect they won't be starters, but they might play the part. So, George, what stands out to you about that squad?
Well, initially after those stats, James, the sort of inexperience of it all really is incredible, to be honest with you, going into, like I said, a major tournament, what that it is for Brazil, just the pure nature of the inexperience and the youthfulness of the team, which immediately probably jumps out at me more than any of any kind of individual quality player. It has surprised me that Donnarumma Jr. has gone with a few uncapped players for such an important tournament. It's an important tournament, this, for Brazil. Like you said, they haven't won it since 2019. They haven't won a World Cup for a long, long time either. It's an important tournament, and he's gone with a very, very youthful squad and some, like you said, uncapped players. The likes of Evan Nielsen, who I am a big fan of. You're right, James, but should he have been in for a major tournament? Maybe not. They've got a plethora of quality options to speak about, haven't they? And probably many, many more that hasn't been in the squad. So, the likes of Savio, yes, he's had a good season. Yes, he's going to Man City again. Was it the right call to put him in? Who knows? Like Sir Martinelli is an outlandish call, to be honest with you, because he's had a poor season. Generally, only 6 goals. And
I wouldn't call him an outlandish call. I mean, he's been in and out of the team. He's obviously not in the best form, but he had a brilliant season. 22-23 he was amazing for a lot of it. And to be fair, Arsenal have had a good year and he's played his part. He hasn't been, he's gone off the boil a bit, but I wouldn't say he's an outlandish choice. I mean, especially when you look at the other attackers involved there. You talk about Savio and Evan Nielsen without, experience. Martinelli has a little bit. I think the glaring thing that we're not mentioning is that Neymar is not in there. So Neymar is still injured. So, the forwards are going to have to kind of replace him by aggregate as the, a Moneyball term. They've got to replace him in the aggregate by getting a couple of players in instead. And, maybe it works, that maybe it doesn't. But I think they've all had, they've all got merit. But Martinelli, I agree with you, he's probably a player who's lucky to be in there. But I wouldn't say he's massively outlandish.
No, I mean, I mean, 9 caps, James, 6 goals this season. I don't know, but like you said, Neymar's not there, and has been for so long the talisman. Like I said, I think Hendrick will be the poster boy, and they'll hang a lot of hope on him, I think, and Vinicius Junior, of course, as well, who will always be there or thereabouts when it comes to sort of tournament winning teams. I think he's got to be in there with a mention, and he will carry this team forward. There's the likes of Rafa in there as well, who does have good form for Brazil, I think. And it's an experienced, sort of experienced side, isn't it, in a way? But then again, like you said, is knocked down by so many players that are inexperienced, and it's a bag of, it's just put your hand in and see how it goes, isn't it, really?
It does feel that way a little bit. I mean, you look at this team and it's not a Brazil squad that you'd say is especially, dangerous. Or you look at the midfield in particular, it's very workmanlike, the midfield.
Yeah.
Very workmanlike. I mean, you've got a little bit of magic in Paquetá and potentially Andreas Pereira, but Andreas Pereira is a decent enough player, but is he going to win your tournaments? I'm not really sure he is, to be honest. And then the rest of them, Bruno G, again, we've raved about him, as well as Douglas Luiz. And João Gomes I like as well, to be fair. But they're all quite solid and not particularly spectacular. So you're going to rely on a lot on Vinicius and, like you say, on Hendrick if he starts on pulling something away. But I think the thing on the other side of that is to say that this does look like a very solid team, in that there are players in there who are gonna dig in and put a shift in for you, and they've got a defense as well who know what they're doing. You look at whatever partnership they go for. Militao obviously isn't hugely match fit, but he is fit. Militao, Marquinhos, Gabriel, all had, Gabriel's had a brilliant season. Bremer's had a good season. Beraldo, we spoke about, is a talented young defender. And Danilo as well is hugely experienced. So, and then Alisson behind that. So it looks like a team that's built on good foundations, and I think that's going to have to be the key for them. It hasn't been so often. It's been look at the attack, focus on how they can hurt you. But Brazil always have another side to them. You think about Gilberto Silva and the players of that ilk who have come through. They have had them kind of nasty shithouses, a lot of them. Felipe Melo for a long time held that midfield together, and they do have players like that who can do a job, and this has that. So maybe the foundations are there to build on, and then they just rely on a moment of magic from one of the forwards. And look, they're all capable of delivering that in a moment. Martinelli can turn a defender inside out if he's having a good day. So for me, that's what this will be built on. Good, solid foundation with a sprinkling of real quality at the top end.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not a bad sort of way to go about it, is it, James? At the back, solid. You've got that nice little bit of magic to go forward and get you the goals. And yeah, it doesn't have to be so pretty. It doesn't have to be, prime Brazil with, of our era, does it? If he gets the job done, it gets the job done. And you know what I mean? Maybe he's gone to something that we don't know about. He is the manager after all, isn't he? But, on to the, looking at the squad, James, I'll just ask you about who your key man in this squad is. And then we'll just have a quick look at, what Brazil are going to face in the Copa America, and do we think that it can go on and do anything good? So who would be your key man out of this squad here, James?
Well, it's a tough one, and I think the obvious way to go, like you said, would have it feels like it doesn't feel like Hendrick's breakout tournament because it feels as though he's already broken out a little, and you usually save that for a World Cup. How many stars really break out in the Copa America to a wider consciousness? They don't really. So you'd be looking at the World Cup in 2 years for Hendrick to really stand out. Vinicius is going to be a player who really they rely on a lot as well. But for me, it's built on that solid foundation. And in that respect, the key man for me, and you're going to laugh because maybe it's predictable, but the key man for me is Alisson. And I'm saying Alisson because I feel that I still think he's the best goalkeeper in the world. I feel that he can be the real leader there. No, Marquinhos is there as a captain. But I feel that Alisson, if you've got a good goalkeeper in a tournament, you've got a real chance because you only need to play well for 6-7 games. And if they can do that, then, you only need, like I say, to bring up the other end and get a jammy goal or even, a world-class goal. Doesn't matter if your goalkeeper is performing well, then, you're in business. And I feel like if Alisson can bring his best game, which he's capable of doing, then Brazil, I think they have no other reason necessarily not to win when they're built on such a solid defence. The defence will do well, but they will give up chances because every team does. But if Alisson can use those big moments and come up big, I think he can be the difference maker for them just because I think pound for pound, he's their best player, most important player. Yeah, Alisson Becker for me. I think you'll probably have a different opinion, and I think it's fair enough to have the goalkeeper doesn't usually get that kind of plaudit, but I really do think Alisson is that good when he wants to be, and I think if he does turn up, then they've got a bigger chance than if any other player turned up to that level.
Well, you know what, James? You say I'm going to laugh, and perhaps I've got another opinion. I'm agreeing with you here. I think Alisson.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I'm agreeing with you. I think Alisson will be, and for many of the reasons that you pointed out, I think it's got to be built on a good foundation. He will have that solid, experienced defence in front of him, but also, he's a quality keeper. And like you said, if he's got it right, then they've got a chance. If you keep the ball out the net, you've got a big chance of winning the game. And like you said, you don't have to perform all the time well every single time. You just have to get through it. And if he keeps the ball out, you get like you said, a jammy goal, a bit of magic off Hendrick or Vinicius Junior or Rafa or whoever it is. But Alisson, he's got to keep solid. I think it's a big one for him because, like you said in previous episode, James, I think that he's going to be the out-and-out number one. There isn't going to be this thing with Edison going about who's going to be number one. He's going to be number one because the other two lads, like you said, are no disrespect to obviously the Serie A, but they're homegrown lads, very inexperienced. I think they've only got a couple of caps between them, haven't they? And that's come in the last sort of few months with Bento. So it's Alisson for me. If he plays well, they win it. I think because you keep the ball out of the net, you've got an opportunity to win games of football, and he's a good keeper. So I agree with you. I agree completely.
Wow, and had you picked Alisson even before I said Alisson?
Yes.
Did you? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah. I mean, I just exactly that. He's going to have to step up. I mean, he steps up all the time anyway, but he's going to be. You look at the amount of caps in the rest of the team. Alisson's a real leader now, and he doesn't have that where maybe he's going to put Edison in. Maybe he has a real chance to stamp his authority now with the new manager. Say, I'm the guy. I'm the captain now. He's the man to take the shirt off. And I think between him, I don't know who the starters will be, but I suspect it will probably be Marquinhos and Gabriel out because Militao just hasn't played enough. I feel like it'll be them, and those three between them, I think, is the key area of the team. Just because I don't feel the midfield has that personality just yet, and I don't feel that the forward line, for the quality of them, they are younger players. Even Vinicius is still a young player. So I feel like it's got to be Alisson, and I just hope he can do it because he seems like he's such a great bloke, and he has won this competition in the past. He won it last time they were there. He was the goalkeeper, but he deserves that status for me as a winner of multiple trophies with Brazil, and it's a big moment for him, and I feel like he will step up, and I hope he does.
Yeah, hopefully he will. Like you said, big tournament, big opportunity for him to say, "Hey, this is my jersey, this is my spot, this is what what I'm coming to do." Have a good tournament, potentially win the thing for them. But you said you don't know who's going to be in the back line, James, in front of him. Brazil have a couple of friendly games before the Copa America, like the European teams do before the Euros. Everybody has friendly games to warm up to it. This is happening on the 9th of June, the first one against Mexico, and the second one is Thursday, the 13th of June against the hosts, the USA. So, they have a couple of opportunities. Donovan Jr. has a couple of opportunities to, feel out his squad and feel out who's going to play where, what his best, lineup is, what the condition of the players are after a long season. It's got to be said, isn't it? So, they don't get much time off before it all starts again. And big tournament football, it's at a high level. Even obviously the Copa America is no different. So, a couple of friendly games before they get going. And obviously then they go to America. I'm not sure where these friendlies are being played, actually.
No, I'm not sure, but I assume that they'll probably already be over there. Although that game, I mean, the first one against Mexico is, to be fair, a good 2 weeks before it all kicks off, actually. So, no, I'm not sure exactly where they are, but the two teams who obviously will be competing as well, so it'll be good to get the level of those. Mexico can be tricky customers, tend to do well in tournament football as well, Mexico. So that'll be a good test. USA probably a bit less so, although they do have a bit of quality. They're not probably going to be on Brazil's level, but it will be a good to test. So, that's the two friendlies, as you rightly point out, George, and then we get kicked off into it. So Brazil have been drawn in Group D for the Copa America. Obviously, like you said, it's taking place in the USA, and they are playing. I'm not sure where they're going to be based, to be fair, but I'd assume it's probably going to be around California.
Hopefully, James, they won't be staying in Hotel California because they might not leave afterwards. Yeah, exactly. So they'll want to leave with a cup, won't they? But they're being played. I think I would have guessed it would be Cali, James, because 2 of the 3 games are being played in California, aren't they? So, and then the other one, it's Las Vegas, but I can't remember which one it is. It might be the Paraguay one.
Well, I've got them here, fortunately.
Oh, good.
So,
at least one of us did.
That's it. So the first one is on the 25th of June. So, like I say, it's almost 2 weeks after the friendlies, which I don't think is probably ideal. But anyway, that they kick off against Costa Rica, and that one is in Inglewood. So that's in Inglewood. Inglewood. So that's Inglewood, California, on the 25th of June against Costa Rica. Then they stay in. No, sorry. Then they go to Nevada. Yeah, so a place called Paradise, which is just outside of Las Vegas, and that's on the 29th of June against, like you say, the Paraguayans, and then they finish up 4 days later in Santa Clara, California, against Colombia. So,
I mean, that's probably the hardest game out of the 3, isn't it, James, if you have a look? Although Costa Rica and Paraguay both on the days obviously can can cause upset. But I would have expected Brazil to sort of fly past those. Really, I think, like you said, Colombia. A couple of your boys on show in that game, won't there be? I assume. So we'll have to wait, and so that'll be one to watch maybe. But unfortunately, James, they're all on at 2:00 in the morning, every single one of those 3 games. So it's going to be difficult to watch, particularly there's one on a Tuesday, there's one on a Wednesday morning. So probably difficult for us to see these games, but there'll be good games nonetheless, I would have said. And ironically, James, all of the 3 teams they're coming up against are managed by Argentine managers.
Wow,
which is incredible, really. The Costa Rican manager is a chap called Gustavo Alfaro. We've got the Paraguayan manager, Daniel Garnero, and then the Colombian manager is Nestor Lorenzo. So interesting that 3. So there'll be a bit of needle for all the 3 teams. As Argentine blokes to get one over on Brazil. So it'll be interesting that to see how they get on. And obviously the competition itself kicks off on the 21st of June. So Brazil being in what Group D is, they're further down the pecking order in terms of fixtures. Obviously, the holders Argentina kick off the competition against Jesse Marsh's Canada. So he'll be wanting to celebrate moments or something like that in that one. Yeah, I don't expect they'll be coming up, they'll do any good. The one game I wanted to see, James, when I saw that Jesse Marsh had been appointed the Canadian manager for this tournament was I was hoping they were going to be in a group with Uruguay, but unfortunately not, because that's a game I would quite like to watch, if I'm honest.
Yeah, Leeds everywhere in that one. Yeah, so I think we're coming back to Brazil's group. I think it's on paper relatively straightforward in some respects, but you have to think about Costa Rica. I mean, English fans will remember Costa Rica. I think it was 2014. I think they knocked England out of the group.
In Brazil, yeah.
In Brazil, yeah. So they've got it in them to do something to spring a little bit of a surprise. And as you say, with an Argentine coach, they might be a little more dangerous than they would otherwise be. And Paraguay as well. I mean, not so much anymore, but I don't know if you remember, George, back in 06, 02, they tended to get to the knockouts, Paraguay, I think a couple of times on the bounce, but they had a better team, Roque Santa Cruz and those kind of players. So they're not as dangerous as they once were, but, they could still spring a surprise perhaps. And then Colombia, just Luis Diaz for us, for Colombia. Obviously, Alisson will be playing as well. But yeah, he's very much the main man for them, Luis Diaz, and he's had a bit of a hit and miss season. So I'm not sure I place too much. But to be fair, Colombia I think have been unbeaten in about 27 games or something like that. They've been on a really long unbeaten run. I think they would have played Brazil. They did beat Brazil recently, I think. I'm right in saying in the last round of Copa World Cup qualifiers. I think Colombia beat Brazil in Colombia. So
they did. End of last year, James, November. Your man Diaz got both goals. Martinelli incidentally opened the scoring. Diaz scored a couple of late goals to win the game. 2-1. They're unbeaten since they're unbeaten since February of 2022. Not since a 1-0 defeat to Argentina in like over 2 years ago. So literally
they're not to be taken lightly, and Brazil obviously won't take them lightly. But I feel like a draw in that game will be enough anyway if you can win the other two. So I back them completely to get through this group. I don't think there'll be anybody in South America who won't back them to get through this group, to be honest. But beyond that, what chance do they have moving forward? I mean, if you ask the bookies, Argentina are favourites, and probably rightly so. Obviously, world champions, holders of this competition as well. Scaloni's there, Messi's still in the mix. So, who are your favourites, George? And do you think Brazil can do it?
Well, I've got to go with them as well, James. It's got to be. You can't look past Argentina, really. World champions have won the holders of this competition as well. This tournament, like you said, Messi is the big one for them, isn't he? Still there, and and I think they've been on a decent run recently, possibly as well. So
they went on a mad unbeaten run, but they did get beaten.
Of course, it was Bielsa. Bielsa's Uruguay beat them again.
Yeah.
The same night, the same evening, that Colombian win over Brazil in Argentina, Uruguay were beating them 2-0 again. A Liverpool connection with a goal in yes, Nunes. Darwin Nunes. He scored a goal, didn't he, on that evening. That's the only time they've been beaten since November of 2022 in the World Cup, of course, when Saudi Arabia shocked them. So they're on a massive unbeaten run. They'll fancy themselves, number one ranked team in the world as well. So yeah, even though the squad's not that enticing, from my point of view, really, I do think they'll have enough to win it. Brazil, I think they'll give it a go. But you know what? I'm going to say Brazil will get knocked out in the semi-final. Or, I fancy Uruguay, James, to do quite well in this one. Again, Bielsa's got them playing well. They had a good unbeaten run, I think, as well, for a certain amount of time. And I just think that he's got them going. He's got them playing nicely. And I think they'll be up there with Argentina. Brazil will be in and around it. They always are, of course. But I do think they might just fall short, probably because of the inexperience, probably in the end, that I just think will do them. But yeah, I do fancy Uruguay.
Yeah, Uruguay are always, dark kind of horses for this. I don't know when they last won. It wasn't recently. But yeah, I agree. Actually, I think for me, I do quite like the Brazil squad. Looking at it, it's one of those that, how often do you look at an international team packed full of stars and top players, and they end up winning it? It's usually the team like Argentina at the World Cup that obviously they had Messi, but they have a lot of players who are not particularly, maybe not as glamorous. McAllister for obviously Liverpool now was at Brighton, wasn't a glamorous kind of player at the time, and he came in and did a brilliant job for them. Players like Paredes in midfield, and they had a defence which wasn't especially eye-catching either, but they did the job. And I feel like Brazil have a little bit of that about them. But for me, what they're undoing will be the manager. And I don't mean that in the sense that he's not a good manager, because we haven't really looked at him. But Dorival Jr., 62 years old, he's obviously hugely experienced, over 20 years managing. He's managed some of the big boys in Brazil, and he's managed them to big prizes. At Flamengo, he won the double in 2022, did the Copa do Brazil, and he won the Libertadores in the same year. He's won the Copa do Brazil with 3 different teams, which is pretty impressive, considering Santos and Flamengo and Sao Paulo. It's impressive, but for me, it's that he hasn't been there long enough. He hasn't worked with the group long enough. In international football, again, the teams that tend to win are the ones who have a manager in place who's been there for a while and who knows the group, who's worked with them for a while, who has his tactics all settled. He knows his best team. He knows who he can turn to if things aren't going well. And I don't feel that Dorival Jr. obviously has that just yet. He's got these 2 friendlies. He's played 2 already, but for me, that's not enough going into a major European tournament when you're coming up against a team. Scaloni's been there for years, obviously had success. Yeah. As you mentioned, Bielsa, who hasn't been there as long, but has got his team going, obviously, just probably in the right kind of time for a tournament, and has managed in these this area before. He was at Chile, wasn't he, before? So he's managed in this competition. He knows his players. He knows the group. So that for me will be the one that will see Brazil get undone. I do think they'll go far, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if they did win it. But I just feel that inexperience of the manager in the group is what's going to probably hold them back ever so slightly.
No, I have to agree, James. Like you said, I'm not sure. You had the bookies. Did you have the rest of them? I know Argentina as favourites, or did you have like Brazil or?
Yeah, so the top 5. So Argentina are our favourites. Brazil are second favourites. I mean, it comes with the territory that I think it tends to be not. I mean, you probably would have them as second favourites, despite everything. Uruguay are third. So they've been in good form. They've got a good squad. They've got a top manager. Mexico are fourth, actually. So, like I said, you can never count out the Mexicans in these things. And then Colombia are fifth. So I only looked at the top 5. I can't remember who was beyond that. I know Ecuador were in and around the next couple, but yeah. So that's the top 5, and I'm going to stick my neck out and say Uruguay are going to win it as well. And I just feel. Maybe Argentina might be just one step too far for a couple of the oldies in that team, So
potentially,
we'll win it. But I had Uruguay written down here. I don't know if I said Argentina. I don't think I did. So Uruguay are my pick. I think they might surprise a few. I think Darwin's got a point to prove. He loves being in that group. It's his environment, and I feel like he could be the catalyst to push them on, urged by a little bit of age and wisdom from Luis Suarez, who I think is in the squad.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. Yeah, there's a bit of Brazilian interest as well in this one, James. There's quite a few. De La Cruz. There's Arman Caniobo. Sorry, Canobio's in it as well. There's Arisetia from the Flamengo as well as De La Cruz. So there's a few Flamengo players, to be fair. But let's be honest, Marcelo Bielsa will know these players down to the toilet routines or whatever. He'll just, he knows, he'll know the players and he'll do his work. I think they're going to win it as well, to be honest with you, James. But I think
you definitely said Argentina.
Did I? No,
You said Uruguay will do well, but you can change it, can't you? Look, I'm going Uruguay. You can go Uruguay as well.
No, I thought I said Argentina, Uruguay, the final. I don't think I did say Argentina. Actually, I don't. That'll be the final. I think Argentina against Uruguay, as long as they don't meet, obviously, in the between, if they're not on the same side of the draw, obviously. But I think that would be my pick for the final. Obviously, yes. I would like to see, Bielsa do well and that. And like I said, I would like to see perhaps Jesse Marsh do all right, as well as also another one, James Christensen, who Bielsa will come up against with Uruguay. He's manager of Panama. So like you said, there's leads all over this Copa America competition. 3 of the managers are former Leeds managers. So interest for me, I'll be watching them teams with interest, definitely. But that sort of wraps it up, James, there really. And, bit of Copa America previewed, isn't it? And have a look at the Brazil squad, how we think they're going to do. And, what's more to say than enjoy it if you can watch any of the games, James. If you can stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning and watch Brazil against Colombia or something, then enjoy it.
Well, I ordinarily would. It's a great feast of football, isn't it? But unfortunately, I have to be up, a couple of hours after. Well, about an hour after full time, really. So that will not be happening on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night. If it's on a Saturday night, perhaps I might just treat myself. But we'll have to
stay up all night and watch it, and then have work in the morning. Why not?
Well, I do tend to pull in a lot of the reaction from South America. When the players play, they're often very
They
give good reactions. They don't sit on the fence with the reactions to the performances. So I'll be keeping on top of that and seeing how it goes. But yeah, we're going to enjoy it. It's obviously not the one we'd usually. We will be watching the Euros too, but plenty of involvement, and for both of us there, you've lots of Leeds connections. For me, you've got 4 players who are very much involved, and will be hopefully all starting for the nations as well. So 4 teams I'm sure they'll come up against. Well, obviously Diaz and Alisson will come up against each other, but I don't know who's in Argentina's group, to be quite honest. But I don't think sorry, they're not with Uruguay, are they? So no, they've kept them apart. So. McAllister and Nunes will, I'm sure, be interacting as well on the social media and the banter and that kind of thing. So we're all for that. We look forward to that. And yeah,
Argentina, James, Canada, Chile, and Peru.
There you go. Yeah, difficult kind of group that. So, yeah, let's watch for how it does. Good luck to Brazil. Obviously, they're our main focus, but we do have interest outside of Brazil as well. But yeah, let's look ahead then, George. So before all that kicks off, there is going to be another round of fixtures, and it feels strange to look forward to them, doesn't it? It does feel like it's been a long time, but there is hopefully going to be a full round. So if you want to run through the fixtures, and we have picked out, as we always do, a game of the round for one each to look at in more depth next week. So I think Gremio are kicking off the game week, aren't they? So what else is in store for us on game week? Whatever, is it 8 now?
I think it's game week 7, James. I think it's game week. I think game week 9, but. Game week 9, but they'll have played 7. So, yeah, it does feel strange to look ahead to it. But like I said at the top, this is what we are primarily here for. A break in proceedings, obviously, recently. But so, like you said, James, 1st of June, it resumes again. Gremio face Red Bull Bragantino, like you said, in Curitiba. Is it being played? Curitiba, sorry. So also at 8 o'clock on Saturday evening, English time, Vitoria faced Atletico GO. At 10:30 then, English time, Cuiabá are at home to Internacional, and Fluminense as well host Juventude. Into Sunday then, Sunday morning, very, very early, James, 1 a.m. kickoff UK time, Corinthians face Botafogo. Big gap then to 8 p.m. English time, also on Sunday the 2nd of June. My team Galo resume their campaign against Bahia. Criciúma against Palmeiras. Vasco da Gama face Flamengo, which is, like you pointed out before, a Rio de Janeiro derby. And then to conclude the weekends of fixtures, 10:30 p.m. English time, Fortaleza host Atletico Paranense, who, of course, remember, James, top the Serie A currently on top of the league. And then to finish it off, Sao Paulo face Cruzeiro at the same time, 10:30 English time. That concludes the fixture list for matchday 9 of the Serie A Brasileirão season, James.
Yeah, there you go. To the music there, it stopped, and I thought it might come back, but it didn't. Anyway, yeah, good to have the fixtures, and so we'll pick out two to look at. So I'm going to look at the Gremio game, just because Gremio are finally back in action. It's been a long time for them. It will probably be, I'm sure, an emotional occasion for the team and for the fans in particular. Obviously, it is in Curitiba, which is north of the Rio Grande do Sul region, but I'm sure that a lot of fans will still be able to make it, and it will no doubt have extra poignancy given the events of the past few months, or past 6 weeks or so. So I'm going to be looking at that one. And George, you're going to take your team again, Gallo. I thought we'd look at Gallo Bahia, just because Bahia are going really, really well, second in the table, I think. We haven't really looked at them too much as of yet. So how do you see that one going?
Yeah, it'd be an interesting game, James. Like you said, for all of them, having a couple of weeks off will be, start to get back into it. It's almost like a pre-season break potentially. So they need to get straight back into it. One or two might take a little bit of time to get going. But yeah, Bahia start the season really, really well. Let's see if after this little break they can continue to make that forward momentum into the Copa Libertadores places. Saini's got them playing really, really well, hasn't he? So, let's see if that can continue for my team, Garlo. Hopefully they can get a win that would see them potentially into the top three, regarding other results as well. So let's see, James. Just great to have it back on. And like you said, with everything else finishing, basically, good to have something to look forward to, in the meantime.
Yeah, that's it. Well, they have had games in between. We mustn't forget they have been playing continental football, so it's not as though they haven't been doing anything. And much of the division has still been in some kind of action. But yeah, might be a little shock to the system to get back in. I know a few managers were keen to get a little break in the players anyway, weren't they? So maybe it would have
that's true. Yeah.
The likes of Rafael Vega who were struggling, but anyway, we'll see. So we'll be back next week, and we'll have games. Fingers crossed that all being well, everything goes to plan. We'll have games to review and plenty to talk about. But until then, this has been the Copa America preview, and we'll see everybody next week. Thank you very much for listening. And George, have you anything final to add?
Just to say, James, adios. See you next week. Enjoy the week and enjoy the Serie A action.
Bye.
Adios.
Talking Brazil ball, we're breaking it down. Bringing the passion from every town.